Good morning. Welcome to Freeway Bible Study. Today is the 10th day of April, 2018. Today, Genesis 29. Jacob arrives in Paddan Aram. My name is Kurt Bell. I am the host of Freeway Bible Study. I'm a non-believer who, despite my disbelief, I nevertheless enjoy reading the Bible. And I do so every day, Monday through Friday. In the morning, we'll have my breakfast, and then I talk about it on the commute to work on my motorcycle. So today we're discussing Genesis 29 and the further adventures of Jacob. Now, Jacob, of course, is the son of Isaac, and there's been a bit of a scuffle back at the ranch. Jacob deceived his brother Esau, his older brother Esau, out of his birthright, and for various reasons, that was the main reason, but they came up with some other reasons. Isaac has sent Jacob abroad to find a wife. The ostensible reason was to not take a bride from the Canaanites where they live, but it said to take a bride from his family, which made sense. But really it was to make sure that Esau would not kill Jacob, as he had promised to do. So Jacob has been traveling, and he arrives in the land that, he's never been here, so I'm guessing that he's kind of feeling his way along. There certainly probably aren't any maps. He's probably just asking people along the way, am I getting close, And as he goes, he finally comes to a well, and there's a group of men standing outside with their sheep. Now they haven't yet begun watering the sheep, and Jacob asked them, why are they there? Why are they gathered around the well? And the well has a big rock over the top to seal it. It's the wrong time of the day for this, and the men tell him that they can't water the sheep. So Jacob suggests that they water the sheep and then get the sheep back out in the field. And the men tell Jacob that they can't do that until the day is until someone rolls the stone. So I guess there's kind of a contract, some sort of a deal, that there's an appointed time when they'll roll back the stone, and they gather and wait for that to happen. Maybe the stone is to prevent animals from accessing the water, wild animals or something. Who knows? I did read that this was like a contract type of thing with precious resources like water and fields and stuff, that there would be arrangements made between the herdsmen, and that sounds like one of these. So Jacob then asked the men, have you heard of, and I can't remember his name, the man that he was coming to see, which is I'm a little confused. Is it his father's, I think it's his grandfather's brother, right? Not really sure. I think that's what it is. I think it's Abraham's brother. Have you heard of them? And they say, yeah, we know this guy. We know that guy. And then Jacob asks, how is he? And he said, he's fine. He's very fine, good. And look, here comes his daughter. Oh goodness. Okay, there's three main characters in here: Jacob, Leah, and it's not Rebecca. It is, and I've got to remember this name because it's a key name in the whole story. Rachel, that's right. So it says, behold, here comes Rachel with the sheep. So it looks like it's Rachel's job to tend the sheep of her father, and the father's the one that's the relative of Abraham and Isaac. And so Jacob goes over to Rachel, and first thing he does is he rolls back the stone and waters the sheep. Now I'm wondering, isn't that going to piss some people off? Because aren't they supposed to wait for an appointed time? But I don't know, maybe because he's a stranger and he could leverage the fact that he doesn't know better, or they forgive him, or whatever. Who knows? So he does that, and he waters the sheep, and then he goes over and Jacob kisses Rachel, which you think that would be a little untoward, and then explains who he is. You think he'd do the opposite, explain who he is and then kiss her. But so he does that, and Rachel is very excited, and she runs home and she tells her father, who comes back out and greets Jacob and invites him into the home. And they come into the home, and Jacob starts to live with the family there. And when he first arrives, Rachel's father tells Jacob that you are my flesh, which means, according to my reading, that he's basically part of the family and therefore subject to inheritance. It's almost like he's adopting him into the family. And that goes on for about a month. And something happens in that month, and at the end of that time, and we know it's a month because it specifically says in Genesis 29 that it was 1 month later. As Laban, I think that's his name. Laban is the name of the man, Rachel's father. Laban says, "Will you work for me for free? You know, what name your wage?" And in so doing, he's basically going back on his original idea that you're going to be a part of the family and inheritance. And Jacob doesn't seem to mind this, and he says, "Well, how about, I really like Leah. How about if you give me Leah to be my wife in exchange for 7 years of labor?" And Laban agrees to that. Now, Laban has another daughter, an older daughter, and her name is, I'm sorry, I'm struggling a little bit with the names. I'm having a little bit of a hard time. Her name, and I'm thinking the part I'm struggling about is that I'm not really sure if it's Laban, and I really want to look it up on my app as I'm riding my motorcycle, which is a stupid thing to do, so I'm not going to do that. So instead of calling, I'm going to use the word Laban, and I'm hoping that it's right. When I use Laban, I'm describing Rachel and Leah's father. And he's one of the principal characters in this particular story. And so I'm sorry if I'm getting the name wrong, but I've got to be safe, and also I'm losing the flow of the story. So Laban has basically renegotiated the terms. Instead of offering Jacob to be a part of his family and is subject to inheritance, he's simply setting him up as a wage earner. And his wages will be a wife after 7 years. And Jacob agrees to do that. Now, Jacob thinks he's going to marry Rachel. But when the 7 years are up, he goes to Laban and says, "Hey, 7 years, time to give over my wife. I really want to," as they say in the King James edition, "go in unto her." And as they say in the New International edition, "I want to make love to her." So there's no question about what he wants to do. And he states it explicitly, "That's what I want to do. Bring me my wife, I want to do that." And it turns out, again, I did some further reading, that was the tradition at that time. They would have, when this contract was done, whatever the price was to be paid for the bride, whether that be in actual goods or money or labor, when the appointed time came, the father of the bride would throw a feast, and at the end of the feast in the evening, he would bring the girl to, or the woman to the man, and he would consummate the marriage right there on the spot. And typically, often she would then remain with her family, receiving conjugal visits from her new husband until she became pregnant, at which time she would then move in with his household, which kind of makes a lot of sense, right? And then once she's pregnant, she's carrying the seed of that household and probably will be much more welcomed into it and might have a much better time with the mother-in-law. So they have the feast, and at the end of the feast, Laban brings not Rachel but Leah. Now we know that Rachel is very beautiful, and we know that Leah isn't quite the looker. Something may be wrong with her eyes. The King James edition kind of gives it a poetic feel, like she's got weak eyes, I think, and the other one says, I don't remember. There were two differences, but the New International edition kind of gave a better idea that something's really wrong. Maybe she's cross-eyed or one eye's looking off or something, but she's not quite the same. So Laban, I guess at the end of this feast, Jacob is, maybe he's been drinking a lot or something like that, but he's maybe it's a darkened room or whatever, wherever the marital bed is, and he brings a woman to Jacob in the dark and gives her to her, and he goes in onto her, as they say, they do in the biblical. And in the morning, when the light comes and he throws open the blinds, lo and behold, it's Leah. Imagine his shock. Not the beautiful Rachel that he had bargained for and worked 7 years for. So he immediately goes to Laban and says, "Yo, what's up, man? I all these years I worked for Leah, not for Rachel, not for Leah." And Laban kind of responds, it's not the custom of our people to give the older daughter, to give the younger daughter before the older. Remember, Leah is the older of the two. And he then says, "How about this?" This is Laban speaking. "How about you just enjoy a week of enjoying the marital week with Leah." I guess it's a 1 week long ceremony. And then at the end of that, at first I wasn't sure. It sounded like he was asking him to wait another 7 years and then give him Leah, but it sounds like he gave him Leah immediately after the marital week was over, and then simply required another 7 years of work. So he said, no, don't worry about it. Just enjoy your week with Leah. At the end of that week, I'll give you Rachel. You can do the whoopee with her, and then just stay on with me for another 7 years. And Jacob agrees to do that. So at the end of all that, now he really loves Sarah, but not Leah so much. So, am I getting the names wrong again? Rachel, that's right, not Sarah. He loves Sarah, but not Leah, and Leah knows this, and she's heartbroken and feels really bad, and word gets to God about this. Now, the way it's worded, it actually sounds like that God becomes aware of it. Like, shouldn't God already know about it? Anyway, we'll forgive that, some poetic license there. And his response is he kind of dries up the womb of Rachel and, turbocharges the womb of Leah. And I guess that even though Jacob really doesn't love Leah, he's still, taking time to do his husbandly duties with her, because she starts conceiving sons in rapid succession. First one, then another, and then a third, and then a fourth. Bam, 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 in rapid order. With each one, she says, "Now my husband will love me because I've borne yet another son." And I can't remember what the names of the sons were. One of them, I think, was no, I can't remember, but the last one was Judah, I think, and a couple other names I kind of recognize, but I can't quite recall. I can't quite get it right up. So that's the end of the chapter. So at the end of the chapter, we have Leah 4, Rachel 0, and I think our next chapter is going to open not a trade war, not a bidding war, but a baby war between Rachel and Leah. And so we'll see what happens. And that's it. So, and I did leave a question on Facebook for this one. I simply asked, I addressed it to believers, asking them for their impressions about this chapter, what this chapter meant to them. I didn't mean it to be, I immediately got a response from someone indicating that, the chapter tells us that we can marry more than one woman and it's okay to marry our cousin. And I understand that. I expected that response. That was my response as well. But that's not the spirit of my question. My question was specifically targeted believers. What do you get if, let's say your Pastor Bob was going to spend an entire sermon on Genesis 29? What would that sermon be about? Maybe that's a better way to ask it. Although I may not get responses, because believers might say, "Well, I'm not a pastor," and I'm kind of shocked by the silence, the quiet. Not shocked isn't the right word. I'm surprised by the quiet of believers to my posts, and I really try to word my posts in a non-confrontational, non-aggressive way. And for the most part, that's been the result. Even in subsequent comments, it's been pretty easy, pretty even keeled. And I just want to know their thoughts. What do you get from this chapter? Because for me, this reads like not quite filler, but more like if it was like, a character development. Although the Bible doesn't have a lot of good character development. We don't know anybody's hair color or length of their hair, or what their hobbies were, but we do have story development. That's what this chapter reads to be. It gives us a little further along the line, and we also get to see more of God's, interference. I think that's not too strong a word. Interference with human affairs in a world where free will is supposed to be the way things go. So there, I think I just got what I got out of it. I'll leave you all at that. Take care. Have a great day. Make it a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Take care.